Today's video is a compilation of every unique Ironman that I have featured on the channel so far. The audio quality and production value gets better as the video goes on, so please enjoy this compilation of 21 of the most insane Ultimate Ironman accounts that Old School has to offer. And if you make it to the end, let me know who's your top 3. Let's jump in. We are kicking things off with UIM Sharon. Sharon is a 10 HP and 1 prayer PVM account. The backbone of 10 HP PVM accounts, and the reason why they can even exist in the first place, is the cannon. Sharon began his account by grinding out over 100,000 cannonballs, and keep in mind, he's an Ultimate Ironman. This allows him to attack enemies without gaining any hit points experience, but part of what makes his account even crazier is that he doesn't have overheads. Without protection prayers, Sharon has to rely on extremely precise cannon placement, player movement, and sometimes tick eating to navigate his PVM encounters. Using these methods, he's managed to achieve some incredibly impressive items, such as the full Elder Chaos robe set, a dragon pickaxe, dragon two-hander, treasonous ring, and even dragon warhammer. His wilderness boss hunt has amassed some impressive ranks on the UIM high scores, among which is rank 22 Venenatus, which is pretty mind-blowing for someone with 10 HP and 1 prayer. Outside of his boss grinds, Sharon is working towards 99 Slayer, a goal that was one of the driving reasons for him to create his account in the first place. Today, he sits at an astounding 75 Slayer, a milestone that very few 10 HP accounts manage to reach. It's worth noting that Sharon has also achieved other things like the Herbivore Pet, Chaos Elemental Pet, Ranger Boots, and various quest completions that are very difficult for his build. When speaking to him, he noted that Horror from the Deep was probably his most difficult challenge to date, requiring incredibly precise setups and literally over 100 pineapple pizzas. Sharon is currently working on a rebuild, as he sadly lost many of his items when he let his death pile of gear sit on the ground for too long during his Callisto trip, and they despawned. He's managed to regain most of his lost items, and now he just needs to reobtain Ranger Boots and the elusive Dragon Warhammer. After that, it's off to many more PVM grinds for Sharon. I wish him the best of luck on his rebuild and can't wait to see what he does in the future. He's documenting his rebuild series on YouTube, which I've linked in the description below. Next on today's list is the Ultimate Ironman known as Rez. Rez is a 10 HP Ultimate Ironman with a primary focus on skilling. Boasting a total level of 1705 at only 47 combat, he has managed to achieve some of the highest XP totals I've ever seen on an Ultimate Ironman, currently sitting at 1.5 billion XP. His virtual levels quite honestly speak for themselves, and you can see he's achieved 200 million experience in thieving, hunter, fishing, cooking, and fire making. You might ask yourself, what does someone's pet log look like with this much skilling XP? So here it is. As you can see, he's received a combined total of 49 pets. Yes, 49. He's only missing the mining golem, baby chinchampa, and tangleroot to round out the full set of skilling pets. Honestly, that seems a little bit unlucky to me given his experience, but one can only imagine that it's just a matter of time before he manages to catch them all. Rez's favorite achievement to date was reaching 200 million fishing experience, which he also timed perfectly to grant him 99 strength at the same time. This qualified him as maxed for his build, and that put him at the second ever level 3 Ultimate Ironman to max. And for those of you that haven't played an Ultimate Ironman, many UIM training methods are twice or 3 times as slow as traditional training methods, some even worse than that, and further reduced on a 10 HP account. Aside from his crazy XP totals, he's managed to collect every color of Graceful except for black, locking down some peak fashionscape to wear on his future grinds. Speaking of which, Rez plans on grinding for 100 mil smithing, 200 million rune crafting, and 200 million fletching next. Additionally, he'll level his attack to 50 to make it look a little bit cleaner and unlock some additional gear variety. One can only assume that for someone as dedicated as Rez, it's entirely possible that we see 200 mil skills across the board on his high score page someday. Following Res, we have Shiny Yoga. Yoga is a 75 attack, 10 defense ultimate pure, with a solid combination of both skilling and PVM. With a major focus on Theater of Blood, Yoga has over 800 TOB completions, despite his restrictions and pure gear. This has allowed him to build up a nearly full top log and nearly 1 billion value in items on his account. Yoga originally started as a 1 defense pure, but accidentally leveled up when he spec'd using a Dragon Halberd, granting him defense experience. Mind you, this was done while playing with the Runelite Defense XP Protection plugin, not realizing that he could still get defense XP if it was the default style for the weapon and the first time he used it. After this, Shiny Yoga decided to knock out the Varrock Medium Diary, rounding out his defense level to 10 in the process. This isn't the only setback that Yoga has faced though, as he's wiped his account 3 times. For the unfamiliar, wiping a UIM means that an Ultimate Ironman has died to a boss with their items in death storage, like Hespori or Vorkath, and then died again while their items were in the storage. This results in all items being deleted. The first time this happened, Yoga died to Earth Warriors, followed by a death to a small Kraken when he went AFK and his staff ran out of charges, resulting in him slowly dying, and then a third time when doing AFK Slayer. All in all, he's lost roughly 3 million experience in Herblore, a Dragon Warhammer, 150,000 blood runes, 40 mil GP, Wintertod loot, a Robin Hood hat, Ranger boots, and more. Yeah, that hurts. Despite this, Yoga has bounced back time and time again. Today he touts over 2k total on his restricted build and recently received his first scythe from TOB at over 800 KC. He also has over 2.2k clue completions, netting him an impressive collection of various treasure trail items, and 7 pets in total: the mole, Heron, Squirrel, Rocky, Scotizo, TOB, and Zolcano. His upcoming goals involve grinding out crystal shards from Zolcano for a corrupted Bofa, tackling the Inferno, and grinding chambers for a twisted bow. No doubt those are all within his wheelhouse. I just hope there aren't any more wipes in his future. With that, we are brought to Inquisitor, and let me tell you, he has hands down one of the coolest RuneScape accounts I have ever seen. Inquisitor is a combat-only UIM with a 30 defense restriction. Of course, you've probably figured out by the name that he's a 30 defense requirement to wear the Inquisitor armor set from Nightmare. His account boasts a massive variety of impressive PVM items, including a rapier from TOB, Hydra's Claw, Brimstone Ring, Sarachnis Cudgel, Devout Boots, Berserker Ring, Smoke Battle Staff, Occult Necklace, Dragon Warhammer, and of course, the Nightmare Staff. This is quite honestly just scratching the surface though, and the full list of items goes on quite a bit further. Outside of PVM drops, he's received multiple Ranger Boot drops on his grind for the Spiked Manacles, a Dragon Sword used for AFK combat training, and full Mystic Dusk, which is absolutely mental considering how hard that is to complete on an Ultimate Ironman. For reference, I'm only aware of one other Ultimate Ironman that's finished the set, and he used over 2,000 keys to complete it. Inquisitor managed to finish the full Dusk set in just over 300 chests. Sadly, since he's not able to train construction and use POH storage, he's often forced to make tough decisions about which items to keep, and Mystic Dusk did not make the cut. If you're like me, you might ask yourself, wait, what does this guy use for food for all of his PVMing if he can't fish, cook, or do herblore? The answer is that he uses cheesy potatoes and karambwans for almost everything. That also means that potions are incredibly hard to come by, and he's forced to push prayer flicking to the extreme to manage his PVM encounters. He explained to me that his defense limitation has more broad implications than one might expect as well. For example, his PVM is made further inefficient because he can't use Piety, Rigor, or Augury due to a 70 defense requirement for those prayers. Additionally, he's not able to access Nightmare Zone, so imbuing rings was completely off the table until Soul Ores came out and he was able to imbue his Berserker ring there. Further restrictions include no God Wars, because climbing over the rubble to reach the path requires 15 agility, which also means no necks when that releases, and sadly the skill requirements for the Raid 3 quest will also lock him out of the new raid. Not all is bleak for Inquisitor though, as the new Fasani's Nightmare encounter will allow him to reach his endgame goal of achieving full Inquisitor even faster. He's also set his eyes on the Scythe and Sanguinesti staff from Theater of Blood, and Elder Maul, Dragon Claws, Kodai Wand, Twisted Bow, and Dragon Hunter Crossbow from Chambers of Xeric. All of these items would have massive benefits across various PvM encounters, and many of them would speed up his goal of full Inquisitor significantly. In addition to these long-term plans, Inquisitor is also working towards 99 Slayer. I couldn't help but ask him if he saw the Inferno in his account's future, given that he has access to the Ranging Guild where he could buy Rune Throne Axes to attack the Nibblers. He said that this wasn't in his immediate future plans, but he also couldn't rule out the possibility at some point. If you're interested in his journey so far, or where he's going, Inquisitor has an incredibly in-depth series of his account progression on YouTube where he's quite active, and I highly recommend giving it a look. Next up is Hour. Hour is an Ultimate Ironman one skill at a time skiller. That's a lot of words to say that he's a UIM skiller that only trains one skill at a time until he reaches level 99. If that wasn't crazy enough for an Ultimate Ironman, he has the goal of reaching 200 mil XP in all of his skills. Originally inspired by one skill at a time accounts, Hour wanted to put a UIM skiller spin on the concept, and thus his account was born. He's well into his journey too, having already achieved 99s in farming, thieving, agility, mining, herb lore, woodcutting, hunter, and he's currently closing in on the end of fletching. As I touched on earlier, Ultimate Ironman skillers tend to work with far lower XP rates than usual, and this is only further exasperated on an account like ours where he's locked to a specific skill progression that can limit his available choices for training skills. For example, when it comes to crafting, he will be locked out of the traditional UIM Super Glassmate crafting method and will have to resort to something called the Brimville crafting method, which involves teleporting to Brimhaven, buying crafting supplies from the charter ship, teleporting to Edgeville, crafting the supplies there, and then glass blowing the supplies while running back to the charter ship. This will net him around 45k XP per hour at 87 plus crafting. You see why this type of account's so crazy? In addition to his level achievements, Hour has set some XP records, including holding the 6-hour and 1-day agility experience records. He's also collected a fair few pets, 15 of them in total to date. He noted that Herblore has been his toughest challenge so far since he had to stockpile seeds from thieving, but that the construction and crafting will also be difficult obstacles in his future. No doubt that Hour is going to be able to conquer the one skill at a time Ultimate Ironman skiller category, and he is definitely going to be one to watch going forward. Lastly, we have Stunlax. Stunlax is unique to this video in that his account actually does not have any special restrictions, other than not banking of course. Instead, Stunlax earns his spot in this video for his jaw-dropping PvM resume, both in his items and ranks on the high scores. Through literally thousands of boss in KC, Stunlax has managed to amass an incredible collection of some of the rarest items in the game. This screenshot was taken a few months ago, showcasing an astounding 3.5 billion in unique items. Among these high-value items are a Twisted Bow, Kodai Wand, Bandos and Armadillo Armor, Cerberus Boots, Dragon Hunter Lance, Inquisitor Pieces, Zenite Equipment, and the entirety of the Theater of Blood item list. Of course, there's much more than that, but speaking of the TOB uniques, Stunlax's TOB log is, in my mind, the single most impressive achievement that any UIM has ever completed. Over the course of 10 months, Stunlax worked his way up to rank 1 TOB at 2000 KC, making him the only Ultimate Ironman to reach the Vercinza Shroud 5. I was fortunate enough to get to do some TOB raids with Stunlax when I was learning, and let me tell you, while I was sweating bullets, this man was absolutely snoozing his way through the theater with me on his back. And just take a look at his TOB collection log page. Take note of the 355 hard mode KC as well, which he's received every drop for, including the metamorphosized TOB pet and the Blood Scythe. I could honestly go on about his top log all day, but even his normal stats are impressive. With over 2200 total, I wouldn't rule out a max Stunlax in the future, though he would have to ruin his 68 fire making pure. Of course, to cap off his achievements, Stunlax also has an Infernal Cape, a task only a small group of ultimates have completed. Speaking of tasks, Stunlax is living up to his reputation as the greatest Ultimate Ironman PVMer in the game, and has been recently barreling through the combat achievements, having completed a large majority of the tasks already, including all of the TOB tasks and much of the Chambers checklist. He recently managed to finish the solo speedrunning challenge for Chambers with a mind-bending time of 16 minutes and 35 seconds. Stunlax is definitely the community pick for the first Ultimate Ironman to finish all Grandmaster combat achievements, and if I were a betting man, I'd certainly put my money on him as well. With Nex and Raids 3 on the horizon, I'm sure we'll see a bigger looting bag and more front page ranks for Stunlax very soon. At number 5 today is Roman's CH12. Romans is rank 12 overall in the free-to-play high scores with an astounding 6,600 efficient hours played. It's also worth mentioning that he's rank 3 overall free-to-play for Ultimate Ironman only. At a total level of 1,467, Romans is a nearly maxed free-to-play account, only needing a handful of smithing, runecraft, and prayer levels to completely max out his build. That means so far he's managed to claim 99s in attack, strength, defense, hit points, range, magic, cooking, woodcutting, fishing, firemaking, crafting, and mining, all while being limited to free-to-play training methods and being an Ultimate Ironman. Of course, despite that long list of 99s and only needing 26 more total levels to max out his build, those remaining skills will take him an additional 2,600 plus hours of efficient gameplay to complete. Roman's favorite grinds included 63 to 106 range at Ogresses, which netted him the best range month at over 12 million XP gained, doing 70 to 99 crafting all in one go, averaging rates of 17k per hour, and his 93 rune crafting grind, which he did via Earth Runes for, wait for it, 3,000 rune crafting XP per hour. If you're wondering, well, why make a free-to-play account like this? Roman noted that he began to feel alienated by the pay-to-play updates and increasing XP rates. Making a free-to-play ultimate allowed him to work towards achieving something that was both impressive and hadn't been done. I would certainly say that he accomplished that goal, and I'm sure his account will only get better from here. Moving on to number 4, we have GG LMAO. GG is a Blast Furnace anti-crash UIM account, and is also the self-proclaimed most useless Ultimate Ironman in the game. For anyone unfamiliar, the Blast Furnace is not just a place to train smithing, but also a lesser known area for niche 10 HP accounts to pump at, which grants them strength experience without gaining hit points. The process is super AFK, you basically operate the pump and then make sure you don't log out, kinda like splashing, but this pumping activity used to actually be fought over by rival clans where they would grief each other by causing the Blast Furnace to break down and thus ruining the AFK training for anyone trying to take advantage of it. That's where GG came in. His whole account's purpose was to anti-crash. These efforts did go rewarded, and all of his time at the Blast Furnace has netted him a mind-boggling 110 strength, or over 42 million strength experience at only 10 hit points. Here's the crazy part. Pumping only grants 12k XP per hour, meaning GG has spent over 4,000 hours pumping up his strength level. Blast Furnace, outside of smithing, is actually quite an interesting and niche piece of old school content. People use it to train strength experience like I mentioned, but it can also grant crafting and firemaking XP, which is how GG got his levels in those skills. As far as future grinds, GG plans on pumping his way to the top at 200 million strength experience, working towards obtaining an Amulet of Fury, and also making a whole lot of cannonballs to work towards his eventual goal of 99 Slayer. A useless account? Maybe, but a very cool account? Absolutely. Coming in hot at number 3 is UIM Herblore. For Ultimate Ironman, Herblore is widely regarded as the most difficult skill to level to 99. This is because training it generally requires multiple steps, such as doing thieving or slayer to get the seeds, farming the herbs, and then gathering the secondaries to make the potions. Even with max efficiency, stats, and the right gear, Herblore XP rates are abysmal, which is why it's often the last 99 for UIMs to get before maxing. UIM Herblore set out to flip this convention on its head and attempt to train Herblore to 99 for his first skill cape on the account. Not only this, but he aimed to reach 99 Herblore without leveling any other skill above 80. This was achieved largely through niche content like temple trekking, sorceress's garden, and camping outlaws. Yes, outlaws. A monster you've probably never bothered to test out. This is a screenshot from around 50,000 KC. RuneLite didn't track coin and bone drops, which is why it only shows 33k. As you can see though, their drops are surprisingly decent in terms of Herblore XP. After around 6,000 hours, UIM Herblore eventually succeeded in his goal of the coveted Herblore cape. He's also achieved some other really impressive things on his account like a twisted bow, Din's bulwark, ancestral robes, the barbarian assault pet, and the Soul Wars pet. I think he put a super cool spin on the UIM game mode, and I'm sure there will be a lot more cool stuff to come from him in the future. Alright, you guys asked for it. In fact, you asked a lot. So today, at number 2, I am very happy to present Ultimate Low. If I were to sum up Ultimate Low in one word, it would just be how. In already maxed Ultimate Ironman, Low has conquered the skilling side of UIM and plunged headfirst into the water of old school PVM. As someone who's done a lot of PVM on UIM himself, I can tell you that I repeatedly saw Low on top of boss high scores, but I never realized exactly how impressive his account is until I started working on this video. Truly, Low's boss KCs put pretty much all of us to shame. Not only is the sheer variety ridiculous, but boasting high numbers across the board, Low has managed to achieve an insane collection of items and pets. Brace yourself, these are his items. Over 9 billion in value. Basically, every rare item you can think of is in here. Ellie, Scythe, T-Bow, Inquisitor, even 3rd Age Druidic. Like, literally every good item. Now, let's take a look at his pets. Oh yeah, he's got a few. 36, I think. And I say I think because he's got so many, it's hard to count. From wilderness pets, to skilling pets, to Slayer boss pets, Low's got pretty much every category covered. In addition to his stats and PVMing, he's also done some serious clue grinding, clocking in at a whopping 5,600 plus clue completions, and that includes 2,700 hard clues and over 500 master clues. Clearly, Ultimate Low is a jack of all trades, and he'll certainly go down as one of the most accomplished Ultimate Ironmen of all time. I don't know, dude, just please like the video and subscribe. Okay, we have arrived at the number 1 slot. At this point, you should be asking yourself, who could Zorte possibly be saving for last? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Min level Skilla. Similar to Roman, Min is a free-to-play only Ultimate Ironman. As his name suggests though, Min is a level 3 skiller. Despite that, Min is rank 1 overall. Not just for Ultimate Ironman, overall on the free-to-play high scores, and by a long shot. He's a completely maxed free-to-play skiller with nearly 16,000 efficient hours played, but he mentioned that his true account playtime is just shy of 23,000 hours. Let me put that in perspective. That's equivalent to maxing a normal count more than 10 times over. In addition, keep in mind he's using free-to-play only training methods, and he's a level 3 skiller, so his XP rates are sometimes even slower than normal. It gets better though. At the time of recording, across all Ultimate Ironmen, including pay-to-play UIMs, Min is rank 87 rune crafting, 3 crafting, 4 mining, 9 smithing, 2 fishing, 2 cooking, 14 firemaking, and rank 1 woodcutting. He has 200 million experience in fishing, cooking, firemaking, and woodcutting. Min doesn't have a lot of progress screenshots, but I did have the chance to briefly interview him in game. First, I asked him, why does he play free to play? His answer was very similar to others in his community, which was that he got tired of all the updates and dailies. He prefers the consistency that free to play brings. I followed up by asking him his thoughts on Jagex making new free to play content in general, to which he said that Ogresses, although a huge update, didn't really affect him in particular since he's a level 3 skiller. But as far as the Camerzal dungeon update goes from below Ice Mountain, he was very concerned about that one, but as it turned out, the method didn't change free-to-play smithing as much as he feared, and the rates ended up being more in line with iron smithing without using rings of forging. I also wanted to know what his favorite and least favorite grinds have been. For favorite, Min told me that he really likes to do 30-hour sessions whenever he has time for that. He wants to do another one for his current goal of reaching 25 million runecrafting XP, but hasn't had time yet. He's done 2 for fishing and cooking, and another 2 for woodcutting and firemaking. On the other hand, his least favorite was spending 2 days straight buying 3.3 million feathers from the Port Sarim shop to get him set for his 200 million fishing grind. And then I asked him about his longest grind, which he said was his current one of training up to 25 million runecrafting XP by doing air tiaras. In total, it will take him 10 to 11,000 hours, and it's also quite tedious and click intensive. After 25 million XP, he noted that he may switch to earth runes for something a bit more laid back. Beyond 25 million runecrafting XP, his future goals include 200 million mining plus beginner clues. Both Min and Roman wanted to shout out their clan, World 385. They have a Discord, subreddit, and clan in game. It's filled with a bunch of great people, so if you are thinking about making a free-to-play only account, do check them out, as well as the free-to-play wiki. I'll link both of those in the description. The first UIM on today's countdown is Ironman I. Ironman's account is exactly what you might expect, a range-only UIM account. Let's get it out of the way first. Yes, Ironman has 99 range on his account, giving him access to the range cape, which is a storable arrow collecting device and incredibly valuable for any UIM. Ironman leaned heavily on the bone crossbow for his range and defense training, leveraging the long range style to level range and defense simultaneously. It took him 1900 hours of bone crossbow training to max out those two skills. With range armor being essential to his build, Ironman also took the time to grind out 84 crafting to be able to create black dragonhide bodies anytime he needs to. He did this through desert sandstone mining, using giant seaweed, and using the Edgeville furnace to make molten glass. This netted him roughly 33k per hour, which for a snowflake UIM actually isn't too bad, but that's still a lot slower than traditional XP rates. His other notable skilling grinds include 92 mining for amethyst and 99 farming. Farming enabled Ironman to slowly train up his herb lore. Today, he sits in the mid-80s, with 90 being his big goal to enable him to create the highest tier overload potion in Chambers of Xeric. Of course, the Twisted Bow is his dream item from raids, and he hasn't gotten one quite yet, but he has acquired a Dexterous Prayer Scroll, which is a pretty close second if you ask me. Other cool features of Ironman's account include a 1 in 16,000 Dragon Medhelm from Barbarian Assault, and the Rocky Pet from Thieving Training. Ironman's upcoming goals include continuing his herb lore and chambers grind, as well as working towards 99 construction, which I can tell you is not the funnest thing in the world on a UIM. He's got an incredibly cool account, and I fully expect to see him walking around the game with a Twisted Bow in the future. At number 4 today is UIM Snowflake. UIM Snowflake is an incredibly unique Ultimate Ironman with many achievements under his belt. Having worked his way up to 2100 total without gaining a single hit points level, Snowflake has undergone some impressively long grinds, such as Blast Furnace pumping for over 1100 hours to get to 99 strength, achieving a variety of skilling and PVM pets, and acquiring some impressive clue scroll items. And yes, you saw the screenshot correctly. Snowflake has a dusted Olm pet, and he managed to obtain both prayer scrolls, an Elder Maul, and an ancestral hat from raids, which when paired with his gilded monk robe top and bottom truly makes for some impressive fashionscape on his account. Today, Snowflake has moved on from his restricted build, sitting at nearly 2200 total and 67 hit points, which is maybe a little bit less prestigious, but certainly still very unique. Will we see him max in the future? Well, with 30 hit points levels left to go, and only 88 total levels left to get, I'd say it's very likely. The next Ultimate Ironman might be a familiar sight for some of you. It's Pip Act. Pip's put a very unique and bold spin on UIM, having restricted himself to playing exclusively on PvP worlds. Let me just put that into context. PvP only accounts pretty much require running around with food on you at all times. Without that, well, you're going to have a bad time when a PKer eventually catches up with you. UIMs tend to have cluttered inventories, because most stuff can't be stored. Now combine those two problems. An already claustrophobic inventory made even worse by having to carry around food constantly. Man, that sounds like both a nightmare and a total blast to me. Pip's UIM sits at about 1600 total. That's a pretty solid foundation for any Ultimate Ironman, but being restricted to PvP worlds only, that is truly a massive accomplishment. His 80 construction was one of his longest grinds so far, since he had to do that via cutting oak trees and then using plank make. And he spent over 50 hours trying to get a Pharaoh Scepter, but ultimately threw in the towel after going over 4x the drop rate. Pip also has 99 range, which is not only beneficial for PVMing, but it also gives him a little bit of firepower against any would-be PKers that are hunting him. Eventually, he will be adding a bounty to his Ultimate Ironman for anyone who successfully manages to PK him to make his risk even higher. If you're not aware, PKers can check his XP gains to get an idea of what and where he might be training, meaning he's constantly got to be looking over his shoulder, maximizing paranoia. To combat this, PvP-only accounts will often opt for very obscure training places that PKers might not think to check. While effective, this has the side effect of reducing XP rates, since the best training places are often the first locations checked by hunters. Pip told me that he was inspired to create this account after watching C Engineer's PvP Hardcore Ironman series, and Pip himself also has a series to document his progress on this PvP UIM account. At the time of recording this, the first episode has been released, and it's one of my top series to watch this year. I highly recommend checking out both that series and Pip's channel in general. He puts a ton of high quality content out and definitely deserves a subscription. I will be linking his channel in the video description below. If you check him out, then please leave him a comment on the video and tell him that I sent you. Next up is Woo91. Woo is an interesting case. His Ultimate Ironman is already maxed and he's not a Snowflake account. So you might be asking yourself, well, what's he doing in this episode then? Woo has one achievement that I think goes down as one of the craziest accomplishments for any UIM ever. That accomplishment is over 181 million Herblore experience. If you ask 100 UIMs which skill is the hardest to train, almost all of them will say Herblore. The tedious collection process for herbs and secondaries, and the slow processing of those into potions make Herblore a massive pain, and it's often the last skill to reach 99 on the road to maxing. You know what would help a lot with it? 200 mil farming XP, and Woo's got it. He estimates that he's done somewhere between 17 and 18,000 farm runs in that process, which has netted him a lot of herbs and potions. Where did all those seeds come from? Well, over 1,000 hours of pickpocketing master farmers, or somewhere around 3 million individual pickpockets. Though the farming process of those seeds accounted for a huge percentage of Woo's herb supply, he also supplemented with over 100,000 aberrant specters, 1,800 chambers of Xeric runs, 22,000 herbivore and farming contracts. Given that he's got 80,000 dwarfweed seeds, Woo's got a lot more herblore XP stacked up. As you've probably guessed, he's going for 200 mil herb XP. At current standings, he's over 120 million XP ahead of second place, and will without a doubt be the first UIM to ever reach 200 mil. Even if anyone else is aiming for that same goal, it will be years before we see another Ultimate Ironman hit 200 mil. Along the way, Woo has also claimed rank 1 giant mole with a very humble 46,000 KC. This puts him at rank 1 for Ultimate Ironman, but also rank 3 across all RuneScape accounts, including non-Ironman accounts. He says that the mole grind was very chill, but clocking in at over 700 hours of time to reach that, I can't help but think that I'd have lost my mind if I were in his shoes. I asked him how long he thinks he's spent on herblore so far, and his answer was 5,000 hours just for gathering herbs, but that doesn't account for the time spent to acquire secondaries or make the potions, so I think extremely conservatively we could say that 7,500 hours invested just into herblore training on his account. Outside of skilling, Woo's done his fair share of PVM, including the 1800 chambers runs I mentioned before, which netted him a twisted bow and every other unique other than the elusive ancestral robe top, 109 TOB runs for every theater item excluding the rapier, which definitely puts him in the running for luckiest UIM at Tob, and a healthy variety of other bossing activities. As far as future plans are concerned, Woo is going to complete his 200 million herblore journey, work on an infernal cape, and continue progressing the skills to climb up to high scores. I'm super excited to see that big 200 mil herblore, and Woo, if you're listening, I hope I get an invitation to that party. My number 1 pick for today is none other than the free-to-play UIM, Kellerata. On December 29th of 2021, Kellerata became the first free-to-play only Ultimate Ironman to max, and he currently sits at rank 6 overall on the free-to-play high scores. Whereas mid-level skill holds the crown for free-to-play UIM skilling, Kellerata has completely maxed, including combat skills. I can't stress how long nor big of an undertaking this is. Free-to-play UIM is notorious for some of the most grueling, tedious, and extreme grinds that one can undertake on RuneScape. To give you an idea of some of these grinds, Earth Rune crafting involved mining Essence and Varrock, and then walking to the Earth Altar for just 3k XP per hour. Prayer was done through picking up bones at the Boneyard and burying them for an average of 8k XP per hour. And Kellerata spent over 800 hours acquiring law runes from ogresses, and then proceeded to risk all of them to telegrab nature runes in the wilderness. With that method carrying the chance of setting you back almost 1,000 hours, I'm not sure if I'd be bold enough to do that. If you're wondering why someone might choose to undertake maxing a free-to-play UIM, I don't blame you. For Kellerata though, it was a combination of factors. First, it was the new updates devaluing achievements and pay-to-play. Whereas new training methods come frequently into the game for members, free-to-play remains mostly static. Second, Autumn Elegy and Disciples videos inspired him and he wanted to follow in their footsteps. Lastly, it's a combination of simplicity, nostalgia, and no obligation to play because, well, you're not paying for membership if you're playing free-to-play. Despite his incredible feats, Kellerata is in fact human and did have a few burnout moments on his way to max, most notably after 92 rune crafting. He also noted that prayer was a massive and tedious grind due to the high level of attention required and a ton of clicking. He even mentioned that he seriously wished the Chaos Altar was free to play, which, coming from someone who is generally against updates and all for simplicity, speaks volumes about how rough 99 prayer in free to play must be. Prayer was in fact Kellerata's final 99, and with that, he claimed his place in history as the first free-to-play Ultimate Ironman to max. Overall, this took 8,100 hours of efficient time played to achieve. So, what's next? Well, Kellerata has set his eyes on passing Coldfingers, who is a normal free-to-play Ironman, and currently sits one spot ahead of Kellerata on the free-to-play high scores at rank 5 overall. With his dedication and work ethic, I definitely would not count Colorado out, and do join me in extending a massive congratulations to him for maxing last month. What an absolute legend. Today we're starting things off with Flopsky. Flopsky is a UIM defense pure, fully equipped with 99 defense at only 50 combat. His journey began shortly after the release of Ultimate Ironman, back when the inactivity timer wasn't a thing. For the unaware, you used to be able to stay logged in without touching your client at all for up to 6 hours provided you were in combat. This allowed players to splash, use Guthins, or leverage other combat options to train accounts without requiring any attention whatsoever. Flopsky took advantage of this mechanic to train by boxing cave bugs in the Lumberj caves. He did this on PvP worlds to prevent random events from spawning, since the events wouldn't occur on these worlds. Keep in mind, this was back when random events were disruptive, meaning you needed to actively avoid them to fully utilize 6-hour AFK methods. This approach allowed him to train while sleeping, dramatically helping to speed up the XP gain process. Flopsky also spent many hours at the monastery, training defense until level 85 at monks for just 1.6k XP per hour. This netted him 40 combat, which is the requirement for pest control, where he chopped logs and fixed barricades for minigame contribution to finish off his defense cape journey. All in all, it took him 3,700 hours to finish off 99 defense, and an additional 700 hours to finish 99 hit points. Flopsky's future goals involve using his trusty Iron Halberd to grind Black Dragons for a Draconic Visage, and completing medium clues for a chance at the Spiked Manacles. The strength boost from those will enable him to hit 2s unpotted. Yes, his big goal is to be able to hit 2s. Good God, man. Skilling wise, Flopsky has set his eyes on the construction cape, though his big moneymakers are the agility pyramid and thieving, so netting enough GP for that grind is going to be a massive time investment. Lastly, Flopsky has aspirations to take on the Giant Mole, Rex for the Berserker Ring, and Jad. Those sound like some lofty goals to me, but with all that he's accomplished so far, I would certainly not put it past him. At the number 4 spot today is Sam Hyde. Sam has an extremely unusual looking account, but let me explain. Currently, Sam's account includes only runecrafting, agility, crafting, and mining. He's amassed 95 million runecrafting experience, netting him a virtual runecraft level of 119 and 7 pets so far. At first glance, you might have had the same thought that I did, which is that Sam must be a blood runecrafting locked UIM. But no, in talking with Sam, he revealed that 200 mil runecrafting is actually only step 1 of his journey. The long-term goal is to get 200 mil XP in all skills, and 200 mil runecrafting is just a needed step to save up enough GP to fund his other grinds. Upcoming skill grinds after runecrafting include hunter, mining, firemaking, smithing, agility and fletching, fishing, cooking, construction, crafting, woodcutting, thieving, slayer and farming, and finally herb lore. I would normally say, yeah right, good luck with 200 mil all. But with runecrafting as his first 200 mil skill, his AHP in the top 5 alongside hour and min-level skilla, and meticulous planning for his progression, Sam has already proven himself a force to be reckoned with in the UIM skilling community, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him among other Ultimate Ironman legends on the high scores in the coming years. Today, number 3 goes to Impling Only, aka Charlotte. The idea of Impling Only began during UIM Verf's Karamja Only series, where Charlotte would help him scout lucky imps for his Inferno grind. Charlotte began to really enjoy Impling hunting and crafted the concept for Impling Only. This account is limited to only using items and supplies from Implings and Clue Scrolls, alongside some basic tutorial island supplies. She also can't use combat, only leveraging magic for non-damaging spells like alchemy. No training supplies can be purchased from stores, nor can she take any ground item spawns. Additionally, the account is locked out of Xanaris, meaning that if Charlotte wants to do some Puro hunting, she has to find a crop circle in the overworld. The ultimate goal of the account is to reach level 99 Hunter from catching Implings only. So far, she's managed to reach level 90 Hunter, taking over 3,000 hours and netting her roughly 1.9k XP per hour. She'll have to catch another 300,000 Implinks to reach level 99, meaning there is still a lot to be done. The account has completed around 400 clues so far, which is especially impressive when you look at her clue completion chart. The chart shows that she only has a 57% chance to finish a beginner, 62% for easy, 21% for medium, and just 3% chance of finishing a hard clue scroll. Despite the low clue completion rates, Charlotte's obtained some big items like the ranger boots and even gilded pieces. The account sounds like a huge treasure hunt to me, and if you're interested in seeing her progress, Charlotte has documented the entire series on her YouTube channel, which I highly recommend checking out, and I have added links to that series in the description below. Next up is Combat UIM. His account started as a bit of a joke before 807 and restricted accounts gained the popularity that they have today. The aim of the account was to reach max combat with every other skill left at level 1. This was mostly done through AFK combat training, then using pest control to polish off 99 prayer. But as the account progressed, Combat UIM realized that his account was largely lacking in endgame content. It was after this realization that he decided to add range and magic, followed by agility, herblore, and slayer. These added skills would enable him to participate in more PvM activities like God Wars, increase his gear variety, and improve his ability to create supplies for bossing. As for training those new skills, herblore was done at Chaos Druids, which also granted him prayer XP since he was using the Arceus spellbook for reanimation, and agility was trained at the agility pyramid since he has no use for marks of grace. Combat UIM has managed to obtain some very useful items for his build, but perhaps the most impressive of all is a crossbow which he received at around 1300 revs KC. Doing revs on an ultimate is incredibly tedious, as it involves preparing your rev gear, death piling, running to the rev caves, and then making it back in 45 minutes to pick up your gear before it despawns. Repeating that for over 5k KC takes incredible patience. For future PvM goals, Combat has his eyes set on an SGS and ACB from Sarah, finishing his Guthan set, and an Amulet of Avarice. For skilling, he wants to achieve 99 prayer and agility. I really love the creativity of this account, and I can't wait to see what's next for Combat. At our number 1 spot today is UIM Dragon. At first glance, Dragon looks like a very impressive but normal endgame Ultimate Ironman. I can assure you, he is not. The backbone of UIM accounts is the looting bag. It essentially doubles our storage capacity. UIM Dragon plays without one. But wait, there's more. Dragon also forgoes the usage of death banks. For the unfamiliar, this is the death reclamation system attached to bosses like Hespori, Vorkath, and TOB. When an ultimate dies to one of these bosses, 100% of their items are placed into that storage. That clears out our inventories and allows us to carefully engage in skilling activities, making them far less tedious than operating with a cluttered inventory. That leaves death piling, which is a little bit different than death banking. Death piling is a normal death that causes all items to drop to the ground, where they remain for 60 minutes before despawning. Functionally, this is very similar to death banking, but with a constant 60-minute timer ticking down, a small misjudgment in time can easily cause an Ultimate Ironman to lose all of their items. So far, Dragon has managed this expertly. Even more so than other UIMs, Dragon needs to maximize inventory space. His account's gear largely revolves around what's storable in the POH because of that. This has led him to complete over 4,000 clue scrolls, snatching himself several completed rune sets, Blessed God D'hide, Enchanted Robes, Zealot Robes, Mage Arena Capes, and so much more. Despite his restrictions, Dragon has managed to achieve 2200 total level, a quest cape, and some pets along the way. A truly impressive UIM on face value, and really jaw-dropping when considering his playstyle.